Welcome back to the Business Roundtable Podcast. I'm super excited to have you guys with me. David Carr, the founder of Steward Your Business, bringing people together to accomplish great things. I have a special title for this episode. I've already kind of laid it out for you guys. It's from Jedi web designer to business builder, Roger Jorns, on reanimation design, storytelling, and the force of connection. That's my working title. You guys are listening to this podcast, but I'm super excited to have Roger Jorns here. Welcome, Roger.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much, David. That's really awesome. The intro and everything. Yeah, I love that. I have a long ways to go. So that's super awesome. I love that. That's super great.
Oh, well, I'm super excited to have you here. Roger and I have a lot of crossovers you guys are going to see in this episode. And we met, I think we met early part of this year through Success Champions Network.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Roger's one of the leaders in one of our chapters that we're in that group called National Selection. And Roger and I started talking and connecting there, and then I realized, okay, he's a founder of Reanimation Design, which is we're going to get into websites and how we can use those as a tool to help transform our businesses to be more effective, right, in communicating our message. And of course, you know, Roger and I are huge fans of Star Wars and other things, so you can hear some geekdom coming out through this podcast as well. So, Roger, let's welcome the force here. I'm glad to have you, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background, because when we have guests coming on here, you know, some people may know them, other people haven't heard them before, and I'd love to have your bit of your origin story, where you came from. Yeah. And to now your passion, and I love your passion, by the way, because you're posting on LinkedIn, you're sharing ways that people can help improve their websites, improve their messaging out there. But talk about your journey to reanimation design, where you're at now.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that, David. And again, I'm super excited to be here. Well, let's see here. I was born at a young age, and no, I'm just kidding. Starting all the way back there. Yeah. Oh man, be here forever.
Yes.
Talking about that. And then when I was 10, I looked at Sally. No, you know. And then the last thing I remember is that I punched him. I will say though, in high school, I do remember one story specifically. Like I was in football for one season. And I just remember one time, like I was like, "Oh, hey," it's like awful, right? Like literally still the same height, but like 50 pounds lighter. And I just remember the last thing, like, "Oh, hey, look, the hole's open," and I'm running through it as a defensive lineman. I had no idea, or linebacker, and I'm running through. And the last thing I remember is just seeing the running back coming at me. And then the next thing I remember, I was like, "Why am I on the side of the field?" Oh, it's because he hit me so hard. I passed out. I got knocked out. So anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. So I apologize.
Good.
But anyway, yeah, no, I've always found website design to be interesting. And when I first was like, oh, maybe I could, think about doing this. I was actually getting my degree in theology, and I got my bachelor's and my master's in theology. And if you want to know how to stop a conversation or make it super awkward, is when, hey, so what's your degree in? Theology. Oh, okay. So when I had, thought about web design, people were like, well, if you want to do web design, look, this is way back in like 2008 or something like that. They were like, well, you can do graphic design or you can do software development. And I said, cool, I don't want to do any of those because that's not at all what I want, Yes. So just kind of continued doing, I had a couple of different jobs, and always kind of watching how web design had kind of developed. So really it was in 2018, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm just going to kind of figure out how to do web design. And so, YouTube at that point had started really become a place where you could kind of self-taught, and so I took a couple of online courses. But what really kind of stuck out to me is that I always told my wife, it's, really web design is not that hard. I'm just moving boxes across the screen, but I'm trying to figure out how to make them stay, right? And so then it became a point of, okay, well, why am I putting the boxes, in this order? Why am I putting this heading? Why am I putting this? And so then it was like, oh, okay, cool. Well, you can tell a story through the website, marketing came into that, you're telling a story, you're helping people feel something, and there's a structure to it. You're not just randomly putting things all over the place. And so that was really something that I wanted to help share with people, because a lot of times, businesses are like, well, we just got to get something out there. But, when I first started, I was like, well, I want to know what you do. And I think that was something that kind of drew me into that. It's like, whoa, that is really cool. I didn't know you did that. your
Mm-hmm.
website doesn't say that, and it's like, how can
Mm-hmm.
we help bring that out? And that was really something that I found super interesting. Just the whole marketing aspect of it, of telling a story. I love stories. Obviously, we love Star Wars.
Yes.
And, you want to hear a good story, and people gravitate towards that. And so I think it's just a really cool aspect of it. And that's something that I tried to help people kind of think through when we're designing websites, and when we're thinking through their marketing, when we're thinking through how are you showing up online.
Yeah, no, I think it's so powerful. And it's funny you say, you said earlier the theology degree, but I come from faith as well as a Christian, had that background. And if you spend any, whether you're a Christian or not, if you read the Bible, there are tons of stories, amazing stories,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
right, and I think those that have been able to translate stories well, we remember them when we see where stories aren't. You could take the same exact story and
Yes.
then put it in different formats, book format, on a movie, right, or other ways,
Yeah.
music, and some of it's very memorable, and you're like, oh my gosh, and other times just like it's forgettable. It's like,
Yeah.
what was that again?
Yeah. 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 100%. And even with that aspect of story, it's, before, now we can write stuff down or type stuff down, doesn't matter,
Hmm.
right? But before, right, there was always that where people would, tell stories to each other, and you have these ways of people that would, that would tell stories to each other. But that's how history and how things got passed along. And so I
Hmm.
think that there's always just that innate underlying, like, yeah, we kind of were made for story, right? Like, we resonate with those
Yes.
stories. And I think that that's super important. And that's why I think also why I resonated with that, of
Hmm.
coming from a background of, I love to read, right? I still read my comics.
Oh yeah.
I still read my fantasy, my
Yep.
sci-fi and all that, and I get wrapped up into a good story. And just like you were saying, coming from a faith background, and also when you see, the stories that is telling the story, right, throughout
Hmm.
it. And so I think that we all kind of resonate with all sorts of story. And that's why, I mean, you look at what now the Marvel universe, on
Oh my
screen. I
gosh,
mean,
yes.
it's because it's telling the story, and people want to see how everything connects. And I think that also plays into a business for their online presence as well. And so, they want to see how things, connect and all that.
Well, and I mean, I'm old enough. I'm 51, Roger. I remember when back in the day, people said, "Why do I even need a website?"
Yeah.
Why do
Yeah.
I need a
Yeah.
website? I remember a colleague of mine going to even churches and saying, "Hey, I think you need a website." They're like, "We don't need a website." It's just
Yeah.
so funny
Yeah.
to think about that. In a way, it's a way of reaching people. And like you said, to your point, I see kind of. I'd love to get your perspective. Sometimes I see something that's just very, I don't say basic, but it's just very like some information, but there's no real story. It's just information, or and or they're trying to tell a story, but there is so much stuff. It's like
Yes.
I can't I can't make heads or tails of all of this stuff. I'm confused. You're losing, quote unquote, losing the reader, if you will. And then
Yeah.
where they're just like, I'm just going to go somewhere else. It's just too much. So can you talk a little bit about the journey of, creating a website, maybe a little bit of like, from getting that story, and maybe, don't make it overly complicated. In fact, you helped me recently, and we can get into a little bit about my side hustle, if you will, my light side collectibles one, but talk a little bit about like, you know, that journey of like taking the story, like you said, from the client.
Yeah. And I'm not the first one to say this, if you confuse them, you lose them, that sort of thing.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
really, and again, I'm not like the first one to say this. And I always say, really, your website is doing one thing. It's answering three questions. Those three questions are: what do you do? Why should people care? And helping them think through, okay, well, what are the benefits of working with you? Not the features, what are the benefits of working with you? And what are those results that you've gotten? Sometimes it's and or, usually it's, it's both and. But then also, most importantly, okay, so how do we continue the conversation? Or, how do we, like, how do I get into contact with you? And I tell them, what do you do, why they should care, and how do they get in contact with you. And your website just continually expands on that. You're solving a problem. You think of stories, you think of Star Wars, right? Luke has to overcome this obstacle, Lord of the Rings, Frodo has to do this thing, right? Well, whatever story that you're thinking of, there's always a problem, and you're helping them solve that problem and helping them kind of think through that idea of what that problem is. And, and sometimes it's the problem is, you got to let them know that you're there, right? Because they don't know that you're there. And so when they get there, you want to let them lean into that conversation of like, okay, well, why should I care about what you're doing? And I think that's really cool. Just like you said, sometimes there's so much there, right? It's like, well, I'm going to write a paragraph about, like, well, no, just like a couple of sentences, like, right? Quick sentence. You don't have to tell them everything. I always say it's that just enough that they're like, oh, huh. And then they lean into that conversation, or on a website, they scroll down, right?
Yes.
By leaning into that conversation. So they're like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, cool. I want to know more about that sort of thing. So, a lot of times it's really just, it's a blog, right? And it's like, well, you need to be quick, right? Everything is quick now. So we need to, capture their attention and help them say like immediately, okay, yes, yes or no, you can't solve my problem.
Right. Yeah. They're like, okay, that's I think that's so important that you're saying, Roger. It's simple, but you're like, but you're saying like, hey, remember this, you guys. It is so important that you think through what you're trying to convey. And I know for me, your help on the website was huge with my Lifesite collectibles, so I wouldn't get stuck, right? And like, okay, how can I simplify that? And you were able to do that. It was really great to have your help on that, so anybody that wants to go check it out, you guys will have to go look up lightsitecollectibles.com. Roger helped me on getting that all set up and making sure that it looked good. It was simple and got the story. And and I feel like sometimes people make it much more complicated than it needs to be, and having you, like you said, okay, it's just these simple things of, here's the story I'm trying to convey. And that's why I love about Success Champions Network. You work with other marketing folks, branding experts too, and you work synergistically of like, what's that vision that you're trying to create? And that's what I love, having people like you on this podcast, Roger, so that we can say, there's somebody else I know. We don't have to be an expert in all things. When I reached out to you, I said, look, I know WordPress, I know some of these things, but I'm not doing this all the time like you are, and you have a different perspective, and you know what's working and not working, and how to adjust these things. And it's not, I guess part of it too, Roger, is right. It's not set it and forget it. There's different things that are evolving out there as far as how we need to set these up. How are they being, whatever, the terms SEO, the AI, all of that stuff. How is it being set up so that it's properly being found, right?
100%. I think it's important that people do kind of stay ahead of that, but it's also just part of that, like where you want it also to just be, it needs to be visually appealing. It needs to look good. It needs to you need to kind of change. Obviously the big thing right now is people are talking about AI, SEO, all that sort of stuff, all that generative stuff. And so and they're really, really trying to push GEO, which I am not a fan of. I just say AI and SEO, or SEO and AI. Although I will say, I had started telling people like a year ago, well, SEO stands for search engine optimization, but I told people like, well, really SEO stands for people are searching everywhere online. And I started to say that. And then I realized, oh, I should go get the domain for this. And somebody already took it. And I was like, darn, I should have copyrighted that. Yeah. But that's what I still tell people, people are searching everywhere online. You don't necessarily have to be everywhere, right? You find where you're going to be, but then you show up there. And it's important to stay on top of that, and even with AI and SEO, you need to stay on top of that and the changing things, and making sure that it's simple. Like, even, okay, so I'm a retail store. Where can people find me? Right. They don't want to have to go, to 3 different pages to figure out where you're at. What time am I open? All that sort of stuff. It's it's telling that story. It's giving that people that information, that's important to them when they need it.
Absolutely. Well, I got a question for you on that, because we have a lot, not necessarily, we don't have as much retail folks on this podcast, although it doesn't, not generally speaking, we have more folks in the professional services realm,
Yeah.
Roger. So to tell a story, if you're a professional services, engineering, legal, whatever the case might be, right? I'm just going to put that broad umbrella of professional
Yeah.
service. You can narrow it down, but to tell the story effectively, what would you say would be kind of the minimum that you would want to have on a website? I mean, obviously there's a home page, but is there other pages, or do we create, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Do we create a
Yeah.
standalone, funnel or landing pages that's clear for certain things,
Yeah.
services? What do you see right now, Roger, as far as what's the minimum? And then of course you could always add more, but like if you did nothing else, what would you say to tell the story of your company? What would you say? How would you segment that out?
Yeah. So if you're going so if you're moving from a landing page, you're wanting to tell all those different elements. So like your services, your about, tell them how easy it is to work with you, right?
Hmm.
The story brand framework is very popular, so
Hmm.
tell them how
Oh
easy it
yeah.
is to work with you. Tell them all those different things, right? And so I always say you want to have a minimum of 4 to 5 pages. You want
Hmm.
to have a home page, you want to have an about page, you want to have a contact page, and then you want to have your services page.
Hmm.
And with that, you then are able to kind of hit the main things, because you're also thinking about, okay, well, SEO, you're thinking about like, how are people going to find me? Because
Yep.
actually, and it's still largely true today, the about page is usually one of the top 2, sometimes the top 3, depending on
Hmm.
pages that are still visited, because people want to see, okay, well, who is behind this, like
Hmm.
who is this person that I'm talking to or not talking to, right? And
Right.
so that's really, really important. So then you're able to again continue to tell that story of, what do you do? Why should people care? So what's the problem you solve? What are the benefits
Hmm.
of working with you? What are the results? That sort of thing. And then how do they get in contact with you? And then obviously, have that contact page in your services page. I always say, if you're going to have the 5th page, that's like a flex page. That's like a kind of do what you want page. So if you
Yep.
have maybe a specific service that you're really, maybe you have 4 services, but really this is your main service to kind of get everybody in, if you will, then
Yeah.
you have a separate page just for that. Or
Hmm.
contractors, or maybe you're a creative or something like that. And you have maybe a portfolio or like a gallery page, that sort of thing, so that people can see outside of whatever your service is. They can kind of see, okay, oh wow, they can do all these sort of things. So that's usually the minimum basic: home, about, contact, services, and then like whatever you want sort of page, or flex page, if you will. So that's really the minimum once you get past the landing page.
Got it. Well, related to those, I've heard different things. I'd love your thoughts on this for folks. What about the role of, in telling the story, Roger? What about the role of case studies or testimonials, or
Yeah.
what other people say about you? Okay, there's one thing about
Yes.
hunting, talking about myself, right? And there's
Yeah.
all us speak, but what about what other people say about you?
Yeah. So that flex page can definitely be used as a case study.
Mhm.
That's absolutely fantastic. Some people want to kind of just have like a testimonials page, like where it's just blocks of testimonials. That's
Mhm.
fine, but it's better to have, if you can have a couple down, kind of below. To be honest with you, what something that I talked about this, and some people call it different things. I like the CTA booster.
Uh-huh.
But if you can take something that somebody said about you and put it near a call to action, so if you're like, sign up for this book, or download this thing, or uh, you know uh, get this trial, or something like that, right? Put a CTA booster, you know uh it's a quote from David, right? Like, Roger really helped me do this thing, or
Mhm.
David really helped bring clarity to my business, right? Sign up now, that sort of thing. And you're able to put that right there. That actually kind of boosts that CTA. But having an actual case study, especially if it fits within your business, hey, I was able to take them from point A to point B, and this is what they learned along the way. And oh, by the way, look at what they have to say for it themselves, that sort of thing.
Mhm.
That's really great. So if you can combine what you did, and then also in their own words have them tell you what you did, but then give you like a review, give you like, hey, this is how David, this is how so and so helped me, grow my business, help me gain clarity, whatever that is. That's an excellent flex page, because people want to see, like I said, people go to the about page because they want to know, is this a real person? And then they want to
Mhm.
see, what have they done? Oh wow, okay, they've done all these things, and that's really cool to see that somebody else talking about what you did.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, one other thing I have to follow up as you're pulling those things together. I had another episode on the podcast recently, and we were talking about your digital assets and making sure that those are all organized and put in the right place, whether it be video, pictures, whatever that might be, quotes, um, so that you can be successful, right, Rogers? That you want to make sure that this stuff is vetted, correct, right?
Yeah.
You're using the most updated stuff. What are the things that business owners can do or be more proactive about in preparing, especially if they're going to come work with somebody like you, Roger? Which are the things that they should be looking for to make it smoother?
Yeah, that's actually great, because when I first started, it was like some businesses, maybe I didn't really know what certain things were, and I'd be like, "Hey, could you? I have you put all these pictures in this folder. Can you tell me what this is? Because maybe you
Hmm.
have 3 different services, and I'm like, I'm not really sure what they are." So I
Yeah.
definitely started doing that. Yeah, 100%. If you can, and it works on a whole bunch of different levels. So if you can say, "This is what this picture is," and you don't want to have like a long sentence, right? It's just David talking to client laptop or something like that, right? Okay, cool, awesome. Now I know that it's this specific service, right? Or you're doing this specific thing. Then you're able to then kind of organize that and say, okay, this is part of this service. But then you're able to put, like, for SEO, alt text for it, so that
Hmm.
screen readers can see it and Google will pick that up. But yeah, if you have like multiple services, I've definitely tried to start to have my clients say, okay, you have service A, B, and C. Can you please label the images that you have? So, hey, here they're cleaning carpet. Here they're cleaning a van. Here it's cleaning, an office, warehouse or something like that. That's just a totally made up example, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
now I know what it is, because now, instead of me being like, cool, I got 50 pictures and I don't know which one is which, because I know your business, but I think that this could go here, but it may be over here, like, that sort of thing. And so that helps bring the clarity, not just to me, but also to people that are seeing it, but then ultimately to Google, because Google will read that as well. And so it's like a threefold thing that, people know what it is, I know what it is, and then Google will ultimately know what it is, so that it can show it to the right people. Because having that organization is very key.
Yeah, well, I would say I've heard, and maybe you've experienced, I'm sure you've experienced this, but somebody says, well, let's just go grab a picture or something from the internet, and they don't realize that
Mm,
that is, copyrighted or something.
yes.
And now that they get, and so
Yeah.
I think as a web designer, you're looking out for those things, right? So we're not using
Yeah.
things that are the wrong stuff. We don't want to get a legal letter saying, hey, you got to take this down, or you've infringed upon our, um, intellectual property, right?
Yeah. 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 And there's obviously watermarks and stuff. And I
Mhm.
always tell people, try to get, if you can, right? And sometimes that's a business is starting out, or they
Mhm.
don't have the opportunity to take a picture, right? Or maybe there's some confidentiality, so they can't necessarily take, pictures and all that. But yeah, 100%. I'm like, there's you either need to pay for it, you need to take it yourself, or professionally or whatever, or you need to get it from a copyright free place. And there's a few places that'll do that. But the issue with that is that, like, I've been looking at some websites and I'm like, oh, that person gave me that one and I know where that's from, from this
Mm.
copyright free place. And so for other businesses may be able to use that same thing. And
True.
people may not know that, but because I pay attention to certain things, and because I'm always looking at websites, and I could kind of see certain things, and I may look at it a little differently than other people. But some people may be like, I was just on this website and I'll run another website, and they both have the same images and all that. So
Well, there's lots of templates, right? So people could use
yeah,
a template, but
yeah,
then you can't. I mean, templates are good. They help you get up to speed quickly,
yeah,
right? But you still have to
yeah.
make it your own.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. It can't just be like, well, I'm going to do this template. Cool. If you're going to do a template, that's totally fine. And, I use templates sometimes, but it's still taking it's like, well, we're going to move all this stuff around. And also, I need your stuff. I'm not going to use, whatever or anything like that. And it may be, okay, for right now, we're going to launch the website, and then you're going to give me this stuff. Cool. Awesome. But you want them to, because that's part of the storytelling. You want them to see you. You want them to see who you are and your employees, if you have any, and your place of
Yes.
work, right? All that sort of stuff. You want
Oh,
them
totally.
you want them to connect with you, and all that. So yeah. So being mindful of stock images, because people can tell when they're stock images, and hot take, but using AI images, you need to be very careful with that for multiple reasons. But one is because, and obviously if your business is built on AI, like imagery, I'm not talking about that, but like, I've been to a couple websites where I'm like, well, that's very clearly AI, mainly because the person has 5 hands, or has like 5 fingers.
They're
It's
like,
gibberish, right? Their tie starts up here and like it ends up over like on the bottom, and it's just, why is there 2 suns? This isn't Tatooine,
yeah.
So yeah, you gotta really pay attention to AI imagery, and really make sure that you're paying attention to that, because it could come out a little wonky.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think people realize, if you don't, AI doesn't think for you; it just takes the inputs and
Yep.
prompt. And so
Yeah.
whatever you're telling it to do, I'm here in California. If I said I was going down to the river, if I told somebody like that lived here, like, I know, Roger, you live down here, you would say that's probably the Colorado River. But if I put that in the AI, what river? It doesn't know where I am in the world.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
There's no
the
context to me unless,
Michigan, is it the
yeah,
Nile
right.
River?
What,
What?
are we the
Yeah, yeah,
Mississippi? What river are we going
yeah,
to? Right. So
yeah,
it takes whatever you, and then, like you said, it puts it out there. So be careful. That one of the other thing you mentioned while you were talking about, it's for clients, but it was also for employees, or potential, I would say, employees. Like, I think a lot of them are looking at their website and saying, what are you about? What's your mission? What are your values? Is this somebody that I align with? And I think thinking about that too, not just from a client perspective, call to action, but like the people that might come to work for your company, right, Roger? We have to think about that as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually part of this organization, that I volunteer for, Disrupt HR. And one of the talks that I talked about was like, what are you doing on your website? Because it's like your company website may be doing this thing, but then when it comes to like the HR portion, it's like nobody pays attention to it. And it's like, well, your website and your job ad is marketing, and if you're showing these generic images, if you're just showing these confusing images, people are going to be like, well, they're selling something, but I'm not really sure that's how it's going to be, and they want to see, and obviously, you can't show everything, but there's this one awesome example of this website where I was, they took a cue really from the movies, right? They didn't just tell, they showed. We always talk about benefits, but they showed all the different benefits that you were going to have, but people actually using those benefits. So like they showed lodging, and then they showed them, for company benefits, like, at parties and food and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, oh, cool. Yeah. They took the time to do that instead of just listing out all the different things that, that they give you. It's, oh, cool. Awesome. I can see myself in that image doing that thing, or it's not really a place I want to work at because I'm not really, into that, or that's not really what I'm looking for. It's a both and sort of thing. It attracts, and it also, it attracts and it repels.
Polarizing, right? In a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
You don't, if you're, if you, what's that saying? If you're everything to everybody, you're nothing. You're basically nothing, right? Because it's like, no, you don't differentiate yourself.
Yes.
Right. I got a follow-up question for you. What are the common things that you see when you go to a website, either you're working at a website or one where you're like, man, that's like, I'll just use one, like a dead link. Like somebody's going to click on it. It doesn't work. It doesn't take me. And they're frustrated, right?
Yeah.
Or what are the things, the common things that you're seeing, Roger, in websites? So and it could have worked at one point. It's just somebody moved something, they changed something, and they didn't realize, that you see, like, so then again, it repels somebody, right? If they're like, it doesn't work, I'm leaving, right? So what are the things you see that kind of have people come to the website, bounce, and they're not staying long enough? Like, if you would have just stayed long enough, there's actually really cool stuff here, but whatever, it hit them and they left.
Yeah. Well, so just like you said, if you would have stayed longer, and it's like, well, you have to do that at the top, right? Because as soon as they get there, you have to let them know what you do, why they should care, and what you want them to do on the website. And so, dead links are definitely something that I see. I don't see that a ton.
Mhm.
I don't see dead links a ton unless you start getting like further into the
Yes,
website,
yeah.
you know, because now all of a sudden this like gigantic website, right? But to be completely honest with you, I do I offer like free website checkup, right? I'll give you a free
There you
5-minute
go.
video. I'll do 3 things that you can do on your website. And to be completely honest with you, like 95% of the time, I don't even get past like the actual opening, like the header image of the website,
Just the beginning, you're
because
like,
yeah,
stop,
yeah,
don't
yeah.
have
It's
to.
because like, and then out of those, like 7 out of 10, 70% of them, they don't have a call to action. Or if it is, it's kind of vague. It may be learn more. And it's like, well, maybe you're, I don't know, you're a contractor, right? Or something like
Mhm,
that, right? And it's like, no, it needs to be call now, right? Or get a quote, not, you know, learn
mhm.
more. Or even worse, they don't even have one. And I remember there was this one website I was looking at, and I was like, wow, like I got to the bottom of the website and I said, wow, this is really good. And I told them, and I said, the problem is that your website is upside down. Everything that you have down here, you need to put it all up here on the top, and everything that you had down there, just leave it down there, right? Because like it was like, oh, this is actually really cool stuff. You're offering this, and you have this, and then you can call you. These are really great pictures, and blah blah blah, and all that sort of stuff. But as I was like, you got to put all that stuff, these last 3 sections, you got to put that at the top of the website, because I guarantee you people aren't scrolling all the way down. I'm scrolling down because I'm helping you and I'm looking at it with you, but I can guarantee you people are not scrolling down. So
Right,
that
they just skip it
those are
down.
definitely, yeah, yeah. So it's like you had a great website, you just, you know, you got to turn it around and, you know, put the bottom on the top and put the top on the bottom. So
There you go. I love
yeah,
that. Well, and I love and I appreciate you offering that to our listeners. So you guys heard that. If you want that, free assessment, certainly leave comments. Any comments in the podcast here, we'll make sure Roger gets, whether it's on YouTube, LinkedIn, Spreaker, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you guys find this and listening to us. If you're listening to us, of course, come to YouTube if you want to see the video of us
yeah,
talking. We love you subscribing and following along there. But and I'll make sure we put the link to your website, Roger, and of course we're connected on LinkedIn as well. And I want to say, I really appreciate the connection with you, Roger, because ever from the get-go, I came into your national selection group at the time, and you were very welcoming. And I want to say that, the power of community and connection is really important. And I think, having somebody that you can talk to. I know Roger and I have had number of conversations, and Roger, out of the goodness of his heart, helped me look at my Lightside Collectibles page and help me improve that and give me some great feedback. And I said, that's just who you are, Roger, and I appreciate that. And I feel like that's, if anybody gets a chance to come visit SCN and come to a chapter, you'll get to see Roger in his glory with all the other members there. Come visit mine.
yeah,
But talk a little bit about just in business how why we have the podcast about your journey of like working with others collaboratively and not going out, because I've talked with web folks before, particularly website folks, and they're just a one-man show. They don't talk with anybody else really. It's just me and that's it. And talk about your journey of like how you've been successful collaborating, Roger.
yeah. Well, when I first started, yeah, 100%, I was like, oh, okay, it's just me, right? Like everybody
Mhm.
else is competition sort of thing, right?
Yeah,
And then I
yeah.
realized, well, like, oh, okay, well, actually, I can't do this alone, right? Maybe I've gotten a few clients and I don't know everything, you know,
Mhm.
and they want, and you know, when I first started, yeah, I'll do email marketing, I'll do social media, I'll do this, I'll do that, right? Whatever you want me to do.
Mhm.
And then I was like, I would do it, and I was just like, I really don't like doing, you know, fill in the blank, right? And I was like, I
Mhm.
really just like doing this, right? And so,
Mhm.
really going through SEN, going through networking, whether in person or virtual, it's really helped me like realize, like, oh, you know what? Instead of competing against everybody, I can collaborate, because you know what? I know this web designer and they actually do e-commerce. I don't do e-commerce, and I don't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, right? And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
they can do that. Yes, I actually know somebody who can help you with that, and they're much better at it because that's what they focus on. Alternatively, right? You know, this web designer, they don't work with nonprofits because they have other things that they're doing. And awesome, cool. Well, hey, I love working with nonprofits. So yeah, you know, we're able to collaborate, or, you know, talking with people in Google, you know, they do Google ads. Well, I don't do Google ads because I've seen that, and that is a
Mhm.
full-time thing in and of itself,
Yeah,
right? So
right.
now we're able to like, hey, for my job as a Google ads person, for my job to actually work for your business, your website needs to be better, and it's not.
Mhm.
And so I know somebody. Cool, awesome. I know somebody who's in videography. Hey, you need some help with your finances, some helping with, thinking through, like, what's your business? What is your mission? What is your vision? How are you going to steward your business? Right.
Yeah, there
I
you
know,
go.
I know somebody for that. Right. And that's been really, that's been really fantastic to really kind of think through, because, as you're talking to people, it's like, oh, hey, yeah, you know what? I know somebody that you should meet because they do this thing, and you might have a good synergy with them. You might really connect. And that's been really fantastic, because it really, when I first started, I kind of had this idea of, well, I've never really been in the corporate world, or I've never really done this
Mhm.
thing, and so I don't know how I can do this. And so hearing other business owners, and maybe they had only been doing it for like a couple of years, or maybe they'd been doing it for 10 years, and it was really cool to hear them, and they'd be like, hey, you need to meet this person. And I was like, oh, really? Like, why? Like, oh, okay, cool. And then we have a great conversation. And eventually it came to that point to where I was like, I don't know a lot of people yet. I mean, I've started to meet some people, but like, I
Mhm.
want to connect you to somebody,
Yes.
because, like, man, it was really cool. And then as I continued going on, and as I would chat with people, oh, hey, you're looking to meet with the CTO, you're looking to meet with the social media, fill in the blank, whatever it is that you're looking to meet. Cool. I actually know somebody. You should definitely meet them because they're fantastic. And then it just kind of made you feel like, oh, that's cool. I'm doing something outside of competing and,
Yep.
like, trying to get it all for myself. And it's like, cool. Like, I'm actually contributing, to hopefully somebody's success, and being able to do that. And so that's been really awesome. And there's been a few people that I've continually introduced, to, or I get introductions from. And that's just really awesome, because it's like, oh, wow, cool. I can help somebody else, and I can help them find somebody really cool. And having that collaborative versus competitive spirit, has really started to kind of shape who I am and what I am. Because, we can be, like you said, we can be a silo, one man show,
Mhm.
or we can realize, like, hey, you know what? Everybody's going through something different, and somebody else's strength may be my weakness, and vice versa. And let's work together. And you know what? Hey, now we've helped this client, and now they're better off too, because we're building our business by building their business. And we've also helped them be able to help somebody else. And so it's been really cool. It's been a really awesome journey.
That's so great, Roger. And that's why I loved having you on the podcast here today. I know we could go longer. There's so much we could cover.
Yeah.
And we're going to do another. Or you guys, those of you that want to hear a specific Star Wars podcast, just leave me your
Yeah.
notes, a thumbs up, and we will gladly comply. But
Yes.
we're going to come back on that one. But no, I so appreciate that. And that's the thought of, again, we're not doing this alone. There's an abundance mindset, and I feel like when you work with people that have an abundance mindset, knowing, hey, there's quote unquote competitors out there, but if it helps us all become better, we raise each other up. I think that's the kind of people that you want to work with. That's the people that you want to bring into your organization. And I feel like, Roger, I'm so grateful to have you here, because if people can get this dialed in, they can get their website dialed in. And if they're having confusion, having challenges, what I see is it's both twofold. It's like, if they're confused and they're not getting it dialed in the way they need it to be, I look at the rest of the people organization is probably a little bit confusing inside the organization too. What are the services we offer? What are we
Yeah.
focused in on? Right? Because it's
Yeah.
just going to exude externally. Maybe they do understand a little bit more internally, but still, what I found is it will come out at some point. So if you do this work with Roger, and you're like getting clear on your story, getting clear on your narrative, and getting that out there, it will benefit your people.
Yeah.
In the long run. And that's why we have this synergy together of, like, we're always looking for, like, how do we help each other? So if I'm seeing a
Yeah.
client that's struggling with their website, or not going, they've gone some iteration changes, maybe leadership changes, quite
Yeah.
honestly, the direction of the
Mm.
company has shifted. Well, the company says we're doing this, or this is how we're doing things. And in fact, it was so funny, Roger. I just talked with a friend of mine the other day. He was working in this AI thing, and on their website, I think it was on their website, said, hey, for questions, contact us via Skype. And for the users that don't know, Skype is no longer around, but it was
Yeah.
still up on their website of, like, a way to contact them if they had
Yeah.
questions or challenges. So technology is things shift, and if you're
Yeah.
not staying up and staying relevant, it's like,
Yeah.
again, I'm going to bounce to somebody that is relevant
Yeah.
in today's age. And so having somebody like you, Roger, come and look under the hood, so to speak, and get that assessment I think would be great. Is there anything I want to, as we're wrapping up the podcast, the assessment is definitely a great tool and we want people to come and check that out. But is there anything else that you would say, hey, if you did nothing else, if you're listening to this podcast, you're gonna, move on to your next thing today, that they should do, the business owner, the individual that's responsible for the websites, well, what should they do? What's the next action for them, Roger?
Yeah, I would say if you can, and it's hard to, because we're so close to our business, we're so close to what we do. When I first ask people, well, what is it that you do? It's like they word vomit, right? And so there's all this sort of stuff. And so if you can take yourself out of that just for a moment and look at your website and say, I know what I do, but does Sally know what I do? Does David know what I do? Does so-and-so, does somebody that I'm trying to, talk to, do they understand what I do? And honestly, take a few seconds, see if somebody that maybe is not super familiar with your business, or, that they just know it, and just say, hey, from just this opening aspect of it, am I being vague, or am I trying to be clever? Am I confusing them? Do people know what it is that I'm trying to do? Because again, within that, they have 3 seconds or something like that, right? Within that less than 5 seconds, can people understand what I do, why they should care, and how they can contact me? Because what it comes down to is that, like I said earlier, the bottom of your website is really nice, but the top isn't. And if the top isn't, nobody is going to get to the middle or the bottom of your website. So can you people tell what it is that you do and why they should lean in or scroll down on the website to continue that conversation with you? And that would be, I think, the biggest thing that they need to do. Am I being clear? Do people know what I do? Do people know why they should care? And do people know how to get in contact with me and further that conversation? That would be the big thing.
There you have it right there from Roger Jorns, Reanimation Design. Roger, it was a real pleasure having you here on the Business Roundtable podcast. You guys will put reanimationdesign.com. Of course, you can check him out. And if you want to go see his work on lightsightcollectibles.com, please go do that as well, among others. Real proud of what he's been able to do there. And of course, like and subscribe, all of that good stuff. We, of course, love you guys following along and love to hear from you. We welcome your comments, your feedback. Thank you so much for being here, Roger.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, David. It's always a pleasure being able to chat with you.
All right, everybody. Until next time, of course, come back. We look forward to having you, and may the force be with you. Thanks, everybody.